Hi, I'm Thomas Horn, and approximately 45 years ago now, I came home one day from work, stayed up that night in prayer, and then went to sleep. The very next thing I knew, I was standing in front of a very brilliant light. Somehow I knew that I was standing in front of God. I also knew that He had shown me some things, and that at one point even a scroll had unfolded and I had watched vivid images. I wake up and I write them down. An example that most of the world knows about now was in 2010 when I saw dark clouds rising over the Vatican and woke up and wrote down that Pope Benedict XVI was going to retire in April of 2012. Started talking about it publicly. In fact, came on Sid Roth's It's Supernatural and talked about it in 2011. Made that prediction. 2012 came and went, and at first it did not appear that Benedict had resigned. But then, as the world knows now, in February of 2013, the Vatican made an announcement. Pope Benedict XVI has resigned. He has retired. And that same day, the Vatican's media outlet, the El Osservatore Romano, gave an interview with the New York Times journalist in which they admitted that Pope Benedict had actually, officially, secretly resigned his position at the Vatican in March of 2012, and then in April of 2012, it became official with the Curia, the Roman government, and they accepted his resignation. And now, of course, my phone was ringing off the hook. Everybody, everywhere, wanted to know who my insider at the Vatican was, right? Who had been feeding me this information. And I laughingly, of course, today say that if I told them that it was the Holy Spirit, that would really confuse them. Approximately 1 year ago, this experience that I've had all through my adult life happened again. And I was actually on the top of a mountain somewhere, and I was surrounded by thousands and thousands of people. And everybody was in a panic. Everybody was screaming and running and looking back over their shoulders, including me. And that part of the vision for me was the most frightening and the most real, because so far as my mind was concerned at the time, it was actually happening. And I remember turning and looking back over my shoulder, and I could see this giant burning mountain that was coming through the atmosphere, breaking apart as it raced towards the surface of the earth. And as we were all running, all of a sudden, this stone fell into the Pacific Ocean. It knocked all of us off of our feet. The whole planet felt to me like it was shaking, vibrating so roughly that we could not stand up. And I heard this horrible cracking sound, as if literally the mantle of the earth was breaking apart. And again, I looked back over my right shoulder and I saw this giant tsunami, a massive wall of water that was coming up over the top of this mountain. And I knew that we were all getting ready to perish. And just then, as if two large hands came down underneath my arms and lifted me up into the air, so that now I was looking down on the planet. And it was horrible, it was terrifying, as this water was rushing over the top of all of these desperate people who were screaming and crying and praying. And I watched something that only later did I understand was actually the science of, I'm not a scientist, so I only could write down what I saw and then later verified this is exactly what scientists say would happen. As the waters of the Pacific Ocean, where this stone, this massive burning stone fell, were boiling, and the aerosol that was coming up off of this water moved up into the upper atmosphere, and a whole series of hurricane movement started moving across the hemispheres of the earth. And then a second very large part of this stone that had broke off of it, evidently as it entered into the atmosphere, impacted the earth and ignited a series of volcanoes. And all of this material was being blown up into the upper atmosphere and getting caught in the jet stream and was moving around the earth, and very soon, within a period of days, darkening out much of the sun and the moon and the stars. And then I woke up. I was so terrified, I literally almost fell out of bed and grabbed a sheet of paper, which I've learned to keep next to my bed, with a pen, and I started writing down all of the minute details, blow by blow, of what I had seen and what I had experienced. But before I could do that, it was as if a voice in the room spoke and uttered a single word, and that was the word Apophis. Now, I knew that there was an ancient Egyptian god of chaos by the name Apophis, which was the enemy of light, the enemy of Ra. I knew that. I didn't know a lot more about it than that. And I also knew that NASA had discovered an asteroid at the Kitt Peak National Observatory in 2004. And at the time, they named it Apophis after this Egyptian god of destruction. And at that time, they actually speculated that there was enough of a serious chance that Apophis was going to impact the Earth in 2029 that they put it on their watch list. Later on, they decreased the chance that it's going to impact the Earth in a bit over 9 years from now. But I learned later that this is probably because they're involved in a cover-up, and that the chances of Apophis striking the Earth in 2029 is far greater than what they're admitting at this point. And by the way, in the book, I go into that. It's more than a conspiracy theory. I've interviewed and talked with astronomers, members of NASA, people with above top secret security clearance. Lieutenant Colonel Robert McGinnis from the Pentagon, who was a senior analyst there, put me in contact with impact specialists. People like Nathan Myhrvold, who is constantly listed in the top 100 critical thinkers, scientific thinkers in the world, a true polymath with over 800 patents to his name. He once ran the science department at Microsoft. One of the most brilliant men on earth, has recently published a peer-reviewed paper in an astronomy magazine in which he accuses NASA of an absolute cover-up of the threat that is posed by both Apophis and some other asteroids. So I did all of this research and came to believe that, in fact, of all dates, Friday the 13th, April 2029, Apophis is going to strike the Earth. Now, the facts around this asteroid are astonishing. It is 370 meters wide, 1,200 feet wide. Or to put that into more of a mental gymnastic, it's 4 NFL football fields wide. It weighs an estimated 20 million metric tons. It is traveling at 28,000 miles per hour. And if, as I predict, it impacts the Earth in 2029, it is literally going to be equivalent to, scientists say, 65,000 atomic bombs the size of the ones that we dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima at the end of World War II that literally sunk the Japanese island. They say that at a minimum, tens of millions of people will die, and possibly billions of people are going to die. NASA says that if this rock does hit the Earth, it's going to come down probably around the border of Mexico and California, so a highly densely populated area. So you can understand why this was such a terrifying vision to me. And the bottom line is, Apophis is a real asteroid. And here's what they're saying. They're saying it probably isn't going to strike the Earth in 2029, so they changed their opinion a little bit. It still could, they're saying. But here's what they're saying. But it's going to come so close to the Earth that it's going to knock the satellites out that are in orbit around this planet. Now, this is a monster rock, and I talked to several astronomers, including a friend of mine that works at NASA and has above top secret security clearance, and plus Lieutenant Colonel Robert McGinnis that works at the Pentagon, put me in contact with impact specialists, all these scientists, and they said there is no way in the world that you can say that a stone moving 28,000 miles per hour through space that's going to cover tens of thousands of miles before it gets here in 9 years is going to come so close that it's going to knock out the satellites and yet be assured that it's not going to hit the planet. They all said that's rubbish, it's a cover-up. Here's what I believe. I believe it because I saw it. I believe it because what I saw and the way it came to me has not yet one time in my life failed, including the resignation of Pope Benedict against all odds. It has not happened one time yet that it didn't unfold exactly the way I saw it. So I'm speaking from personal experience, but it's been validated by the facts after the fact. So I believe it in all my heart. I will look you in the eye and give you a new prediction, like I did when I told you the Pope was going to resign and everybody said it would never happen. In April of 2029, Apophis is going to strike the Earth. Yeah, well, so my friend at NASA, he was the one that put me on the trail. They don't want this information getting out any sooner than it's going to. By 2025, people will be able to look up in space and see this with their home telescopes, fairly sophisticated telescopes. 2 years after that, they'll be able to look up in space and see it with the naked eye. By that time, there's going to be mass chaos and panic. So right now, they're doing mitigation efforts in the background, which we can talk about. This is part of Trump's Space Force, trying to figure out a way that they can stop this from impacting the Earth.